Hey everyone, my name is Jack. Welcome back to the channel. This is another episode of my Road to $1 Million in Net Worth series, where every single month on the first of the month, I document my progress, or lack thereof, in trying to reach $1 million in net worth by the time I'm 30. I'm currently 24 years old, and also trying to reach a $30,000 per year passive income. This series is not just a way to document my progress towards that goal, but also my way of providing transparency into my personal finances so that any moves that I make have some context behind them, since I think that's really important for determining what sort of risks I was considering when making an investment, seeing what my actual financial picture is, as opposed to many other channels that aren't necessarily as transparent, since I think context is really key for understanding an investment decision. But in any event, nothing on my channel is financial advice anyways, so if you're just entertained by it, that's great too. But last month, this previous April, was a big month, not only because I turned 24 years old, but also because I finally got my results that I passed the bar exam for the state of Illinois, which is great to have that behind me now. It just takes away a lot of uncertainty knowing that I don't have to go through that whole bar exam process again and studying for it, because it takes up a ton of time. You can't really do a lot of other things during it. Now I know that I can actually start practicing as an attorney much sooner this summer, assuming everything goes according to plan, of course, which is never a certain since no one knows what the future actually holds. But I do want to take some time in this episode to go over my plans for the summer, especially on the real estate front, since I am looking to get another property, and I want to talk a little bit about my strategy there and what I'm planning on doing. But for now, let's get into the numbers to see what actually changed with my net worth compared to last month and see what we got in store for today. And as a reminder, in every episode, I always include in the description a detailed net worth tracker so you can see my progress from month to month if you want to go back in time a little bit, see what's changed. And it shows my detailed stock holdings as well in there. And I try to just provide some more granular data there for you guys to check out. As a reminder, last month, my net worth was $71,528.93. As always, let's start with the good stuff, the assets. Given that it's tax season, the biggest changes here are all pretty much tax related. You can see at the very bottom down here, I added some money to our HSA, which is a health savings account, which is a tax deductible account, so got a tax write-off there. I also added some money to my Roth IRA because the contributions for 2020 end very soon in mid-May. That was going to be mid-April, but they've extended the tax filing deadline, so they've extended that deadline as well, but I did add some money there. And you'll notice this nice $3,000 tax refund that we have coming down the pipeline, and you can thank my wife Emily Ann for having her tuition payments that triggered a nice education tax credit, which ended up shaving down pretty much our entire tax bill that we would have had. So we ended up with $3,000 that we're going to be getting back, which is nice. Nice. I'm also approaching nearly $100,000 in stock holdings, so that'll be nice because even though it is invested and it's in stocks, you would think it's not super liquid, but I could sell these stocks if I want to, but I could also borrow against them in a short-term move if I wanted to using a margin loan. Got to be very careful using margin debt, but I like having that liquidity there if something like a real estate deal pops up and we don't want to sell off stocks and trigger tax consequences or anything like that. Margin debt, after all, is tax-free, but you do have to pay it back, so it's not a total win, but there is some great value to using something like leverage there, and that's definitely something that will be a tool at our disposal in the future. And not just in the future, it is something we could do now in a pinch. But in total, that leaves $399,734.09 in assets. And now onto liabilities. Summer tuition is now accruing, and we moved the spring tuition into the student loan pile here, so constantly getting through Emily Ann's program. We are almost done with it. We got another year's worth of payments to get through, but the tuition bills will actually get smaller in the upcoming year, which is good after the summer at least. And you never know when the government will come in and wave a magic wand to get rid of these loans. Not that we're counting on that, but it could happen. After all, there's massive amounts of helicopter money going around, so what's a little bit more to stir the pot? Now, we paid down a little bit more of the HELOC. It was at, I believe, about $70,000 last month, so we kind of moved some money around to pay down the HELOC because we can actually redraw that HELOC if we want to. There's about $60,000 in available balance if we wanted to use it on something, whether that be to pay down other debts or to actually make investments. So we're staying liquid there in that case too. But in total, that leaves $324,779.36 in liabilities, which means our net worth is now $74,954.73, which is a gain of over $3,400. And our debt ratio has slightly decreased down to 81.25%, and our monthly passive income income remains at a steady $350. For those of you who've been following the channel for some time now, you'll notice that we've basically been treading water for quite some time. Yes, this was a good month, but it's coming off the heels of a negative month. We've had a number of negative months, mainly thanks to lots of tuition payments kind of holding back the momentum we might have had, but also the fact that I've been working part-time, my wife's working part-time, so our income has been relatively reduced over the last year and a half or so. But now I officially have law school and the bar exam behind me. I'll be sworn in on May 13th, and I'll actually be going a little bit more into detail probably in next month's episode, or maybe in a separate video, going over this kind of process of going through law school, taking the bar, then actually getting licensed and officially sworn in, because it's this very drawn-out process. I'm going to kind of break that down for anyone who might be interested. But on the financial side, that's going to be great, since now I can work full-time. I'm currently working part-time as I wait to actually be sworn in as an attorney. Once I am sworn in, I'll switch to full-time, in which case my salary will greatly expand away from just a part-time income, which will make it much easier to buy another piece of real estate in the near future, since I'll have a W-2 income, and that's much easier to get approved for a loan than using part-time income or 1099 income. It's very difficult to do that without a long history, which I don't really have a long history, and it's part-time income, so it's not a ton of money anyways. So the goal would be to buy another property sometime in the summer, ideally in June or July, but who knows what will happen. The point is, I got to get a good deal. So there's three sort of avenues that I'm thinking about doing. So the first one would be to buy another condo as a primary residence here in Chicago, and then rent out this current condo as a full-on rental that we're currently in. I'd be aiming for another 2-bed, 2-bath condo, ideally in that $125,000 to $170,000 range or so, and that way we'd have an option if we wanted to house hack that too. You have the extra bedroom and bathroom, adds another layer of flexibility. Plus, if we don't house hack, it's nice to have another bedroom and bathroom for extra workspace. Well, the bathroom wouldn't really be a workspace, but the extra bedroom would serve as a nice office. And in any event, just like the condo that we have now, I'd want to make sure that it could cash flow just barely enough at least to cover a mortgage in the event that we move out from there, which would be the plan long term. Maybe do a couple condos in a row and continue building our portfolio that way here in Chicago. Meanwhile, we would take excess cash and invest it out of state in a place like Indianapolis where we already own a single family rental, which would be option number two, which would be that we stay put in this current condo because we can't find a great deal here in Chicago, because inventory, just like the vast majority of the nation, is very constrained here too, so it's hard to find great deals. So we take that money and instead put it towards another rental property in Indianapolis. The disadvantage would be that we wouldn't be able to get an owner-occupied loan, which would be potentially much less down at a lower interest rate, but you can still get some nice fixed rate financing and a cash flowing rental. And the third option, which would probably be ideal, would be to find a great house hack property that is a multi-unit building. This would be something probably in the $1 million range here in Chicago for a 3 to 4 unit building, ideally, where we'd live in one unit and then rent out the other 3, which would offset our living costs and potentially cover all of them, and we'd be net neutral on our housing costs, which would be fantastic, and we'd be building a bunch of equity in the building that we're in. However, if we went this route, it'd probably take us a little bit longer, since we would need some more cash, since if we're looking at like a $1.2 million property, a 5% down payment would be 60 grand, and then there's closing costs, any rehab, and of course, bringing reserves so that in the event that there's no rent for a couple months, or we lose all of our income for whatever reason, we can at least cover the basic expenses for a little while. If we're going to be playing around with this amount of debt, we have to be careful and have some safety nets built in by bringing reserves. So that's the three options that we're kind of looking at for this summer for buying our next property. One is buying another condo, another is buying a property in Indianapolis. Potentially the combination of those first two would be not too bad at all. And then the third would be actually buying a much larger house hack, ideally a 4-unit building here in Chicago, so we could take advantage of owner-occupied financing and get a hefty property and some nice equity building through that process, and negating a lot of our housing costs through house hacking. And personally, in my portfolio, I have a decent amount of gold and gold mining stocks as kind of a hedge against inflation and the dollar while I look for other opportunities. This would be a great chance to move that money into something like a property, since I think the ultimate way to short the dollar is taking out something like a fixed rate 30-year loan. That is inherently shorting the dollar. You are betting that you're going to make more than 3% back, and you're paying with cheaper dollars over time, which would be fantastic. And I would do that over keeping gold long term, or at least as much gold, since that just fits my expertise, since I'm much more comfortable with real estate than I am with trying to guess what the actual value of gold is. But right now I just have those commodity holdings that you might see in my portfolio. for that reason. It's kind of waiting for another opportunity, but ideally not letting inflation get to the value of my dollars in the meantime. It's not a risk-free strategy, but it's one that I've incorporated into my portfolio. So that's what I'm planning this summer. I think the big highlight is going to be closing on another property. This would be our third property, and it would be a great way to build up the portfolio a little bit more, especially while interest rates are so nauseatingly low. Take advantage of getting a fixed rate loan ideally, which would help cover our bases in the long term in the event that we get some pretty substantial inflation in the near to medium future. And since it would be a property that would cash flow if it's rented out, we'd get the immediate benefit of having that cash flow as well. But otherwise, if you like this video and appreciate this level of transparency, then definitely like it, since that would help the channel out a lot. And if you like this series and want to see more updates in the future, since I put them out on every first of the month, then definitely subscribe so you don't miss any new updates. And check out all the free goodies and the affiliate links in the description below. That would help the channel out a lot as well. But until next time, take care.